Hello and welcome to Mr. Recap. Today we see the most incredible Netflix series on Daredevil. Daredevil is a live-action Marvel series that follows the adventures of lawyer Matt Murdock, who was blinded as a child in a tragic accident but was blessed with exceptional senses. Murdock establishes a law business in Hell's Kitchen, New York, where he now fights injustice as a recognized lawyer by day and a masked vigilante by night. Let us look at the first season in episode 1. Matt Murdock, 9 years old, gets blinded when toxic chemicals fall into his eyes while protecting an elderly man from being driven over by a vehicle. Matt's last vision shows him being consoled by his father, Jack. Murdock goes to Clinton Church in the present day to confess to Paul Lantom and beg forgiveness for what he is going to do. Later that night, Murdock dons a black vigilante outfit and a black mask and stops Turk Barrett and the Russian mafia from trafficking the abducted ladies. Murdock is woken the next morning by a phone call from Foggy Nelson, who discusses the approaching appointment with the real estate firm. Nelson approaches Brett Mahoney, offering him cigars for his mother and requesting that he call him if the NYPD comes across an intriguing case. After that, Nelson and Murdock meet with Susan Harris to discuss renting an office and starting their own law company. Karen Page awakens in her flat alongside Danielle Fisher's body, holding a bloodied knife, and is detained by the police. After Mahoney informs Nelson, he and Murdock go to the 15th Precinct police station and announce themselves as her lawyers. Page informs them that she does not have the funds to pay for the legal services, and while Nelson wishes to go, Murdock agrees to assist her anyhow, as they have no clients at the time. Page convinces Nelson and Murdock that she did not kill Fisher, no matter how the scenario appeared, and Murdock believes her innocence by listening to her heartbeat. Clyde Farnham is sitting in the park when he is approached by James Wesley, who claims to have come to collect the money he borrowed from Don Rigoletto. Wesley informs Farnham that Rigoletto has ceased operations and that his employer has taken over. Wesley sends Farnham a video of his daughter Tracy being watched by Rance, who is prepared to murder her on Wesley's command. Wesley makes it apparent that his boss is unconcerned about the loan and instead wants to take use of Farnham's expertise. When Nelson and Murdock discuss Page's case, Nelson contemplates cutting a deal to avoid the court hearing and reduce Page's punishment, but Murdock is against it. Although Nelson reminds out that Page was discovered in a highly incriminating position, Murdock is sure that she is innocent. Despite the fact that the case appears to be straightforward, Murdock notes that the police and the district attorney's office are hesitant to bring charges, thinking that the case is more complicated than it appears. Nelson reluctantly agrees to follow Murdock's lead, but notes that Page is not revealing the complete story. Page is ambushed in her cell that night by Farnham, who is told to kill her and make it appear as if she committed suicide. Nevertheless, Page manages to live and scream for aid. Nelson and Murdock meet with Christian Blake and Carl Hoffman to persuade them to release Page in exchange for silence about the attack on her cell. They drag Page into their office, where she informs Nelson and Murdock about how she detected corruption in Union Allied Construction's financial records and informed her employer. He refused to listen to her, so she told Fisher about it, but Fisher was discovered dead in her apartment the next morning. Page is worried that the same individuals who killed Fisher will come after Nelson and Murdock, but Murdock persuades her to spend the night in his apartment until they figure something out. Murdock mulls over the case and wonders why the authorities tried to frame Page the first time rather than murder her until she was apprehended. Murdock deduces that Page must have saved the pension file, and that her assailants would be unable to kill her without first obtaining it. Page lies, claiming that all of the data was erased and that she did not get the file, but Murdock already knows the truth. Wesley meets with Leland Owlsley, Nobu Yoshioka, Madame Gao, Vladimir, and Anatoly Ranskahov at Union Allied Property to discuss their predicament, despite the fact that his employer is unable to attend. The Ranskahov brothers tell Wesley about the vigilante who freed the women, and Wesley expresses his alarm about the human trafficking scandal. Owlsley attempted to diffuse the tension by stating that the Union Allied problem is getting unwelcome attention and that it must be resolved as quickly as possible. Page escapes Murdock's apartment and heads home, where she picks up a flash drive containing the Union Allied pension file, but is accosted by Rance. He grabs the flash drive and plans to murder Page, but he is stopped by the vigilante in black, who defeats him in a fight. Page claims that going to the cops with the proof is futile, but the vigilante deposits Rance at the New York Bulletin with the flash drive. The article of the Union Allied embezzlement is then published in the press, causing a tremendous scandal and public outcry. As Page is acquitted of all accusations, she expresses her gratitude to Nelson and Murdock and resolves to continue working for their firm as a way of repaying them for their assistance. Murdoch goes to Fogwell's gym late at night, where his father used to go, and begins punching a punching bag. Wesley consults with his boss about the Union Allied situation and tells him that the necessary steps would be taken. Paige's boss decides to fire her because what she knew was already in the news, and he expresses interest in Nelson and Murdoch. Owlsley follows the money trail left by Union Allied, and Farnham and Rance are assassinated, presumably by suicide. Meanwhile, Gao continues to run her heroin-producing sweatshop, and Yoshioka and his men make plans for a specific location in the city. The Russian mafia attacks the dad on the street and kidnaps his son, commanded by the Ranskahov brothers. Hearing the boy's screams, Murdoch dons his vigilante suit and rushes in to save him. Episode 1 is complete, and we'll see you tomorrow for episode 2. Thank you.